Two guys, same age, same neighborhood, same mortgage payment, same beat up Toyota in the driveway, same Tuesday night habit of watching something on Netflix they'll forget by Thursday. One of them opens his investment app after dinner, sees $300,000 staring back at him, and exhales. Feels like he's getting somewhere, like the years of brown bag lunches and skipping vacations finally added up to something real. The other guy opens the exact same app, sees the exact same number, and his stomach drops. $300,000, and he still feels like he's one transmission repair away from disaster. The whole thing could unravel, and he's not sure why he's not further along. Here's the thing. Those two guys are not a hypothetical. They might literally be the same guy on two different Tuesdays. My name is Nick, and I've spent way too much time staring at this specific number, trying to figure out why it produces such completely opposite reactions in people who have it. Because today, we're not going to talk about how to get to $300,000. We're going to talk about the part nobody explains, what $300,000 actually is in 2026, what it can do, what it can't do, and why the gap between that number and the feeling it gives you might be the most important financial question you're not asking. Before we do anything else, I want you to meet Marcus and Diane. They're 43 years old. They live in a suburb of Columbus, Ohio. They have two kids, one in middle school, one in high school, and a combined household income of $115,000. They're not rich and they know it, but they've been doing the right things. Maxing out their 401ks when they could, paying extra on the mortgage, not buying a boat when Marcus's brother-in-law bought a boat, which apparently took real restraint. And last month, their net worth crossed $300,000. Marcus told Diane they should celebrate. Diane said they should wait and see what it actually means first. Diane was right, and the next 20 minutes are going to explain exactly why. $300,000 puts Marcus and Diane ahead of roughly 60% of all American households. The Federal Reserve's most recent survey of consumer finances puts the median household net worth at $192,700, while the average is $1,063,700. That 5.5 times gap exists because wealth at the top is so extreme, it warps the math for everyone below it. The top 1% of American households now hold 31.7% of all U.S. wealth. The top 10% controls 67%. The bottom 50% on 2.5%. And then there's this. Elon Musk's personal net worth grew by roughly $250 billion since March 2020. One person's wealth growth, not his total wealth, just his growth, is worth more than 830,000 households, each having $300,000. When that's the water you're swimming in, your $300,000 doesn't feel like a number, it feels like a typo. The Schwab Modern Wealth Survey from 2025 confirmed exactly what this does to people's perception. Americans now say they need $2.3 million to feel wealthy and $839,000 to feel financially comfortable. At $300,000, Marcus and Diane have 36% of comfortable and 13% of wealthy. By the official definition of the vibes economy, they are not even in the conversation. 63% of Americans said it feels like it takes more money to be wealthy every single year. The goalposts aren't moving. They're being fired out of a cannon while everyone else is still lacing up their cleats. Cumulative inflation from 2016 to 2026 is roughly 35%. That means $300,000 in 2016 money would need to be $405,000 today just to buy the same things. Flip it around. Today's $300,000 only buys what $221,700 bought 10 years ago. Marcus and Diane haven't lost a dollar on paper, but in real purchasing power, their $300,000 is quietly worth about 26% less than it looks. Inflation is the financial equivalent of someone slowly turning down the volume on your savings while you're not in the room. But that's just the general number. The categories that actually eat people's budgets got hit much, much harder. Median home prices rose roughly 77% in the last decade. Family health insurance premiums jumped 49%, and 2023, 2024, in 2025 each saw 6% increases, the first 3 consecutive years above that mark since the 1980s. The total cost of raising a single child to age 18 hit $414,000, up 77% from estimates just a decade ago. Marcus and Diane have 2 kids. You can do that math, or you can just sit quietly with the feeling it gives you. So when Marcus looks at $300,000 and wonders why it feels like it should be more, is because it genuinely mathematically used to be more. Nobody stole from Marcus. The economy just quietly changed the price of everything while the number in his account stayed the same. That's not bad luck. That's the game, okay? So Marcus and Diane have $300,000. Inflation has quietly chewed about a quarter of its real value, but they still have $300,000 on paper, right? It's all there, accessible, ready to use if they need it. If you own a home, and Marcus and Diane do, a significant chunk of what you're calling net worth is not sitting in an account. It's trapped inside your walls. Census Bureau data shows that home equity accounts for roughly 68% of median household net worth. Apply that to $300,000 and approximately $204,000 of it is locked inside Marcus and Diane's house on Maple Street, which means their actual liquid, accessible net worth, the money they can use without selling their home or taking on more debt, is closer to $96,000. $96,000. That's what you can actually reach into and grab, which is still meaningful, but it's also not enough for a year of average household expenses, not enough for one kid's college tuition at a state school, and about 11% of what the median American says they need to feel comfortable. You're not broke, you're house rich and cash moderate. Which sounds like a financial strategy, but mostly just feels like a very specific kind of anxiety that activates every time the water heater makes a sound you don't recognize. Here's the part that should make everyone furious. We count home equity as wealth, but you can't eat it, you can't retire on it, and you can't access it without either going into debt or giving up your home. It's wealth that exists entirely on paper, for the sole purpose of making your net worth number look better than your life actually feels. Now, the question Marcus actually loses sleep over: what does $300,000 generate when he stops working? Financial planners use the 4% rule. The idea that you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year in retirement without running out of money over 30 years. Your 4% of $300,000 is $12,000 a year. That is $1,000 a month. That is below the 2025 federal poverty line. Not tight, not lean. Below the poverty line, Marcus spent 20 years dutifully contributing to a retirement account, and the math has landed him at government assistance thresholds. Congratulations. And I mean that in the least congratulatory way possible. Add Social Security. The average benefit runs about $24,900 per year, and you're at roughly $36,900 in annual retirement income. Average retiree household spending is $61,432 per year. That's a gap of almost $25,000 annually, not in one catastrophic year, every year, for however long they're alive. And here's the detail that should come with a warning label. The average Vanguard 401k balance for Americans age 65 and older is $299,442, which means Marcus and Diane's $300,000 at age 43 puts them exactly at the average for people who are already at the finish line at 43. 2 decades early, that's supposed to be reassuring. It is not. At a 7% real return is the historical average for a diversified stock portfolio. $300,000 invested today becomes $1.16 million in 20 years without Marcus or Diane adding a single additional dollar. Not a typo, just time. Let it run to their retirement at 65, and it's over $1.3 million from $300,000 with zero additional contributions and nothing more heroic than not panicking and leaving it alone. Here's the concept financial people don't explain well enough. critical mass. It's the point where your portfolio generates more money in annual returns than you're actually putting in. At 7%, $300,000 generates $21,000 a year in growth. Marcus is contributing $1,500 a month, $18,000 a year. His portfolio is now outpacing his contributions. The money is working harder than he is. Every dollar he adds is a bonus on top of a machine that's already running, and $300,000 for most people at a reasonable savings rate is almost exactly where that tipping point happens. Congratulations, Marcus. Your money has officially clocked in and stopped waiting for you to show up. Unfortunately, it's on a 22-year schedule and doesn't care that your car insurance just went up. But while compound interest is quietly working a miracle in the background, real life has an impressive and completely unfair ability to reach into your investment account and pull money out of it. A proper 6-month emergency fund, like the thing every financial advisor says you need before you even think about investing, runs $38,640 at average household spending. One child through 4 years at an in-state public university, $124,000. That's just one kid. Marcus and Diane have 2. A parent needing 2 years of assisted living, and statistically 7 in 10 Americans over 65 will need some form of long-term care, runs about $141,600 based on the 2024 median rate of $70,800 a year. Average nursing home stay is 2.5 years. That's $278,000 from one parent in a family where both Marcus and Diane have parents. Add those 3 things: emergency fund, 1 college education, 1 parent's assisted living, and you're at $304,240, more than their entire net worth, for things that aren't exotic, aren't luxuries. That's just being a middle-aged person in America with a family and aging parents and the audacity to need things. Nobody designed this system to trap people. It just works out that way. The college pricing model wasn't built to destroy your retirement savings. Long-term care wasn't structured to empty your investment account. Healthcare premiums weren't calibrated to consume your raises. They each just did their own thing in their own corner, completely indifferent to each other. And the person standing at the intersection of all of them is Marcus. Now imagine Marcus's mom needs care the same year their older kid starts college, the same year the furnace dies, $8,000 minimum, the same year Marcus's company does a restructuring and he's on a severance package for 4 months before finding something new. This isn't a horror scenario. This is Tuesday for the 23% of Americans who are simultaneously supporting aging parents and raising children. They spend $7,000 to $10,000 a year on caregiving alone, and 72% of them have reduced their own retirement contributions to cover it. They're not buying jet skis. They're just taking care of people. And every year, their $300,000 becomes something a little smaller. And then there's the scenario where the market itself decides it's your turn. Picture Marcus and Diane retiring in October 2007. They've done everything right. They have $300,000. They're walking out the door. They're done by March 2009, 17 months later. That $300,000 is $129,600, a 57% loss. Not because they made a bad decision, because October 2007 was the peak before the worst financial crisis in 80 years, and the calendar doesn't care about your retirement party. The 2022 version was faster but equally unpleasant. Average 401k balances fell 20.5% in a single year. The number of 401k millionaires in America dropped by 32% in 12 months. If Marcus had $300,000 going into January 2022, he had roughly $223,800 coming out of December. He did everything right for decades and lost $76,200 in 1 year because of interest rate decisions made by people in a room in Washington. Not because he panicked, not because he sold anything, just because of timing. The market has no memory of how hard Marcus worked to accumulate what it just casually vaporized. This is called sequence of returns risk. the hidden landmine inside every retirement calculation. Research suggests 77% of your long-term retirement outcome is determined by what happens in just the first decade of your drawdown years. And there's no insurance policy for it, just awareness, diversification, and not doing the thing more than 30% of investors do. Panic selling in the downturn and missing the recovery entirely. Fidelity found that over a 42-year period, missing just the 10 best trading days cut your final balance in half. 10 days out of 10,500. You have to be in the market on the right days, and you won't know which ones they are until after they've already happened. There's a documented phenomenon called money dysmorphia, a distorted perception of your own finances, where you feel financially insecure despite objective evidence that you're not. Your 2024 Credit Karma study found that 29% of Americans experience it regularly. Among adults under 35, it's 43%, nearly half. And here's the detail that should make everyone feel both better and worse simultaneously. 40% of people experiencing money dysmorphia had at least $10,000 in savings, well above the national median savings balance of $8,000. They weren't actually struggling, they just felt like they were completely independent of the number in their account. We've essentially built an economy where having money and feeling like you have money are two completely unrelated experiences, which is impressive in the way that a car crash is impressive. The mechanism is social comparison, and social media turned it into a full contact sport with no off season. People don't measure themselves against their neighbors anymore. They measure against everyone they've ever encountered online. The person posting the portfolio screenshot when it's up, the renovation reveal, the European trip, never the Tuesday when their check engine light came on and they shuffled money between accounts 4 times to cover it. Bankrate found that Americans believe they need $233,000 a year in income to feel comfortable. The average full-time salary is $75,203. We have collectively hallucinated a standard of financial comfort that is impossible for most people to reach, and then we scroll through curated evidence of other people reaching it every single day. Marcus's $300,000 is real. The standard he's measuring it against is a moving target being fired from a cannon. Here's what's actually true. The reason $300,000 feels like nothing in 2026 is not because you're bad at gratitude or disconnected from reality. It's because the costs of a normal middle-class life, housing, healthcare, childcare, education, long-term care have outrun what normal savings can cover in a decade where inflation hit the exact categories that matter most, where home equity masquerades as accessible wealth until the moment you need it, and where the comparison set now includes people whose wealth grew by $800 billion in a year, while yours grew by $40,000. That's not a personal failure. That's a genuinely strange economic moment wearing the clothes of a normal one. But here's what else is true. Marcus and Diane at 43 with $300,000 in 22 years before they want to retire are closer to okay than the anxiety suggests. And if they leave that money invested at historical returns, maximize their contributions through their peak earning years, and don't do the thing that ruins most retirement accounts, panic selling when everything drops, that $300,000 becomes something unrecognizable. In 10 years, it's $590,000 before a single new contribution. In 20 years, it crosses $1 million. In 22 years, at normal return rates with modest additional savings, they're potentially looking at a retirement that doesn't require math-induced insomnia, which, after everything we just covered, feels like exactly the right goal. The problem was never the number. The problem is that nobody explains what the number is measuring. $300,000 in net worth is not $300,000 in freedom. It's not $300,000 in retirement income. It's not $300,000 you can spend. It's a snapshot of where you are on a very long timeline filtered through an inflation calculator that's been tilted against you, sitting inside a house that can't write you a check, surrounded by costs that don't compound the way your investments do. Understanding that gap, really understanding it, is the difference between opening your investment app on a Tuesday night and exhaling and opening it and feeling your stomach drop, the math is the same either way, but only one version of Marcus is making decisions from the right starting point. The number isn't the problem. The problem is that we built an economy where doing everything right for decades still leaves most people feeling like they're one bad year away from losing it, and then we call that feeling irrational. It isn't. It's just math that nobody bothered to explain.